Hey there, history enthusiasts. If you're drifting into the past with me tonight, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below your thoughts. Make these journeys even more magical. Let's ease into the world of the Mamluk slave soldiers, those young figures from 13th and 14th century Cairo, where the sands whispered secrets and the days unfolded with quiet rhythm. Imagine, if you will, a courtyard bathed in the golden haze of a setting sun, where the air carries the faint scent of baked earth and distant spices. Here, in the heart of Cairo's bustling yet timeless expanse, boys no older than 12 or 13 stand in simple linen tunics, their fabric soft against skin, still marked by the long voyage from forgotten lands. These are the Mamluks, slave soldiers, whose lives began in mystery, purchased and brought to this ancient city to be shaped into guardians of an empire. The tunics, lightweight and unadorned, flutter gently in the warm breeze, a subtle reminder of the desert's embrace that lingers even within the city's walls. Their days start early, with the first light creeping over the minarets, casting long shadows across the dusty barracks. These structures, low and sturdy, echo with the soft shuffle of sandaled feet and the murmur of instructors' voices. Steady as the Nile's flow, the young trainees gather in lines, their movements deliberate and synchronized, as if the very air guides them. Discipline was the cornerstone of their existence, a gentle but unyielding force that wove through every moment. Picture the scene: the boys gripping wooden practice swords, their hands calloused yet careful, the wood warm from the sun's touch. A faint clanging rises now and then, not the chaotic clash of battle, but a measured rhythm, like distant chimes in a marketplace, teaching them the art of control and loyalty. Loyalty, that was the invisible thread binding them to their new world. In the chronicles of the Mamluks, as recounted by travelers like Ibn Battuta, we glimpse how these boys, stripped of their original names and origins, found purpose in unwavering devotion. Ibn Battuta, that wandering observer of the 14th century, noted in his Rihla how the Mamluks' masters instilled a sense of family, where the barracks became a surrogate home. The young soldiers learned to pledge their allegiance not out of fear, but through routines that fostered a deep, quiet bond. Each morning, they might share a simple meal of flatbread and dates, the sweetness lingering on their tongues, a small comfort amid the rigor. The heat of the day would settle over them like a blanket, the air thick with the aroma of sun-warmed stone, and the occasional whiff of jasmine from nearby gardens, reminding them of the world's softer edges. Training sessions unfolded with a lullaby-like cadence, the instructor's commands flowing in a steady stream, much like the call to prayer that drifted from the mosques. The boys practiced formations, their linen tunics brushing against one another in harmonious motion, the fabric whispering with each step. Sensory memories abound. The gritty feel of sand underfoot, fine grains that worked their way into every crease, or the cool relief of a shared water skin passed around after hours of drill. Discipline meant rising before dawn and retiring only when the stars emerged, twinkling like distant campfires. It was a life of repetition, where loyalty was cultivated through shared hardships, turning strangers into brothers. Yet, woven into this tapestry is the enduring mystery of their beginnings, a puzzle that even the Mamluk chronicles leave half unveiled. Ibn Battuta himself marveled at how these boys arrived from lands beyond the horizon, perhaps the steppes of Central Asia or the rugged Caucasus, without a trace of their past lives. No records captured their birth villages or family names. They were blank pages, rewritten in the ink of Cairo's sultanate. This enigma adds a layer of intrigue, like a faint breeze carrying whispers from unseen places. One might ponder, in those quiet evenings as the desert cooled, how a boy from a distant plain adapted to the call of the Egyptian sun, his origins lost to time's gentle erasure. It's a mystery that invites reflection, not resolution, much like the stars that mapped the night sky without revealing all their secrets. As the days progressed, the young Mamluks honed their skills in the open yards, where the air hummed with the subtle sounds of exertion. The clatter of practice weapons was never harsh, but a rhythmic pulse, akin to the heartbeat of the city itself. Their tunics, now dusted with the fine powder of the training grounds, clung lightly to their forms, a testament to hours spent under the watchful eyes of mentors. Loyalty extended beyond the physical. It was etched in the stories shared around evening fires, where tales of valor were spun with a subtle wit, like a clever proverb that brought a soft smile amid the shadows. As the sword learns to bend without breaking, an instructor might say, so does the heart learn to serve with grace. These moments fostered a sense of belonging, transforming the barracks into a haven of order in a world of uncertainty. The sensory world of the Mamluks was rich yet understated. The warmth of the sun on their backs, a constant companion that eased into the cooler evenings, the taste of mint tea during brief rests, its refreshing bite cutting through the day's dust, the sound of pages turning in the few books available, as some learned to read and write, expanding their minds alongside their bodies. Discipline meant not just physical prowess, but mental fortitude, where loyalty was rewarded with small privileges, a better spot in the shade, or an extra portion of lentils. Ibn Battuta described such scenes with admiration, noting how the Mamluks' training created a cadre of devoted warriors, their lives a blend of rigor and repose. In the quieter hours, as the city settled into slumber, the boys might gaze at the moonlit Nile, its waters murmuring softly, evoking thoughts of the vast world beyond. The mystery of their unrecorded origins lingered like a half-forgotten dream, a reminder that from obscurity, greatness could emerge. This aspect, distinct from the tales of individual sultans or the glitter of courts, highlights the collective spirit of the Mamluks, where every trainee's journey was a thread in a larger weave. Through it all, emphasis on discipline and loyalty created a foundation that echoed through the centuries. The Mamluks' lives were not defined by the flash of conflict, but by the steady build of character, much like the enduring pyramids that stood sentinel over Cairo. As Ibn Battuta observed, their transformation from slaves to soldiers was a process of quiet alchemy, turning potential into prowess under the desert sun. And now, as we gently close this chapter, imagine the scene fading like the day's last light, with the young soldiers retiring to their pallets, the air cooling, and carrying the scent of night blooming flowers. We've only skimmed the surface of their world, but ahead lies more to explore, where the threads of history continue to unfold. Until next time, may your dreams be as peaceful as the sands of Cairo. Word count 1,523 in the hushed corridors of Cairo's citadel, where marble columns rose like ancient guardians under the soft glow of oil lamps. Sultan Baybars sat upon his throne, draped in robes of shimmering silk that whispered with every measured breath. The air was thick with the sweet, curling smoke of incense, its fragrance a gentle balm that mingled with the faint rustle of advisors' garments and the distant call of evening prayers. Here, in these serene halls of power, the story of a man once bound by chains unfolded like a dream half forgotten. His rise, a tapestry woven from shadows and resolve. Baybars, born in the distant steppes of the Kipchak lands, entered the world as a child of the windswept plains, where the grass swayed under vast skies and the rivers murmured secrets to the earth. Little is known of those early years, for a veil of mystery cloaks his beginnings, as if the sands themselves conspired to erase the traces. According to the chronicles of Ibn Abd al-Zahir, who served as his biographer and scribe, Baybars was captured in one of the endless raids that scarred the frontiers, sold into slavery as a boy whose name and kin faded like echoes in the desert. Was he torn from a family's embrace, or had fate already marked him for greater paths? The uncertainty lingers, a quiet enigma that adds a layer of intrigue to his ascent, untouched by the clamor of conquests that defined others. In Cairo, the city of minarets and hidden gardens, he found himself amidst the Mamluk ranks, not as a warrior in the fray, but as a figure learning the subtle arts of survival and strategy. The citadel, with its cool stone floors polished smooth by centuries of footsteps, became his world, a place where the scent of jasmine from courtyard fountains drifted through arched doorways, calming the mind even as ambitions stirred. Baybars, in his youth, wore the garb of servitude, yet his keen eyes and unyielding spirit caught the notice of those in power. Ibn Abd al-Zahir recounts how he rose through diligence and wit, his presence a steady force in the councils where decisions shaped the realm. As the years passed, the young slave transformed into a trusted lieutenant, his silk robes evolving from simple tunics to garments embroidered with gold threads caught the light of flickering candles in the grand audience halls, where the air hummed with the low murmurs of courtiers and the occasional chime of a distant bell. Baybars led discussions with a composure that belied his origins. His voice, steady and measured, carried the weight of thoughtful counsel, guiding the sultanate through the intricacies of governance. The marble walls, veined with subtle patterns like the lines on an aged hand, echoed his words softly, as if the very stones approved. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of deepening indigo, Baybars stood before a gathering of emirs in a chamber scented with myrrh and frankincense. The room was a sanctuary of tranquility, its high ceilings adorned with intricate carvings that depicted stories of old, their details blurring in the dim light to create a soothing tapestry. He spoke of alliances and trade routes, his words flowing like a gentle stream, weaving through the complexities of statecraft with a subtle wit that eased tensions. Even the mightiest river bends to the land, he might say, his tone laced with a quiet irony that drew smiles without offense, reminding all that power, like water, finds its path. Ibn Abd al-Zahir notes how Baybar's elevation to sultan in 1260 marked a turning point, not through the clash of arms, but through the quiet maneuvering of fate. In the aftermath of turmoil, he assumed the throne, his early life as a slave a distant whisper that informed his rule. The citadel's inner sanctums, with their plush cushions and tapestries that rustled in the breeze from open windows, became the stage for his reforms. He established order in the markets and strengthened the bonds of faith, his decisions echoing through the halls like the soft toll of a midnight bell. The sensory world around him, the cool touch of marble underfoot, the warm glow of lanterns casting elongated shadows, the faint aroma of mint tea served to weary advisors, all contributed to an atmosphere of measured calm. Yet amid this serenity, the mystery of his slave years persisted, a shadow that added depth to his character. Ibn Abd al-Zahir hints at tales of resilience, of a boy who learned to navigate the slave markets of Cairo, where the air was thick with the calls of merchants and the scent of spices from afar. Perhaps he endured the heat of the forges or the monotony of stable work, his hands growing calloused on reins and tools, all while observing the rhythms of power. This enigma, untouched by the biographer's full revelation, lent Baybars an aura of the unknown, as if his past were a locked chest in a forgotten room, its key lost to time. In his reign, from 1260 to 1277, Baybars turned his attention to the welfare of his people, fostering a sense of unity in the citadel's vast courtyards, where fountains splashed gently and birdsong mingled with the rustle of leaves. He commissioned the construction of mosques and schools, their foundations laid with stones that gleamed under the sun. And in the quiet hours, he would walk the halls alone, the the silk of his robes brushing against the walls like a soft sigh. His counsels, held in chambers illuminated by the warm light of oil lamps that flickered like distant stars, focused on justice and prosperity. With Babar's subtle humor disarming debates, a wise ruler, he once quipped, plants seeds in the dark, trusting the dawn to reveal their growth. A remark that brought a gentle ripple of laughter, easing the weight of decisions. The sensory details of his life painted a picture of elegance and restraint. The cool breeze from the Nile that wafted through open arches, carrying hints of river mud and blooming lotus. The soft thud of sandals on polished floors, the rich taste of dates and honey offered during meetings, their sweetness lingering on the palate. Ibn Abd al-Zahir describes how Babar's presence brought a calming influence. His detached demeanor in times of challenge, turning potential chaos into orderly progression. When whispers of unrest reached the citadel, he addressed them with foresight, his responses measured and devoid of haste, ensuring that consequences unfolded like the gradual unfurling of a rose. As Sultan, he extended his influence through diplomacy, forging ties with distant lands. The negotiations conducted in rooms where the air was perfumed with sandalwood, and the sound of scribes' quills scratching on parchment provided a rhythmic backdrop. His early years as a slave, that enduring mystery, seemed to guide his empathy, leading him to enact policies that protected the vulnerable. From orphans in the streets to laborers in the fields, the biographer notes specific instances, such as the establishment of endowments for the poor, where Babar's decisions echoed his own hidden past, a subtle nod to the paths that had shaped him. Through it all, the citadel remained a haven of peace, its halls a testament to his vision. The marble gleamed under moonlight, the incense smoke curled lazily, and the soft hum of the city beyond faded into a lullaby. Babar's life, from the obscurity of slavery to the pinnacle of rule, unfolded as a narrative of quiet triumph, his subtle wit and resolve leaving an indelible mark. And so, as the night deepened and the lamps burned low, the story of Sultan Babar's draws to a close, his legacy a bridge to what follows, where other tales of history await their turn in the shadow, in the hush of the Syrian desert, where the sun dips low and paints the horizon in strokes of fading gold. The ancient stones of Kalat, Siman, stand as silent sentinels, once a formidable Mamluk stronghold, perched on a windswept hill. Its walls now cradle the secrets of a bygone era, their edges softened by centuries of sand and time. The air carries a whisper of cool evening breeze, carrying with it the faint, earthy scent of sun-baked clay and distant sagebrush, inviting one to linger in contemplation. Imagine, if you will, the patrolling warriors of that 13th century twilight, their forms clad in the glimmer of chainmail that chinked softly with each measured step. These guardians moved like shadows across the crumbling parapets, their boots stirring faint clouds of dust that danced in the dying light. The mail hung heavy yet fluid, a second skin forged in the forges of Damascus, catching the last rays of the sun in a subdued sparkle. As they paced, the wind howled gently through the narrow slits of arrow loops, a low, mournful tune that seemed to echo the fortress's unyielding watch over the vast, undulating sands. One might picture them pausing at intervals, their breath steady and rhythmic, gazing out toward the horizon where the faint outline of trade routes flickered like elusive dreams. Kalat Siman, nestled in the northern reaches of Syria, held a strategic role that whispered of empires in balance, positioned on elevated terrain. It commanded views of the Oronce River Valley and the approaches from the Mediterranean coast, a natural bulwark against the shifting tides of invasion. Archaeological reports from excavations in the early 20th century, led by figures like those from the French Academy, reveal layers of defensive architecture that speak to its purpose. Thick basalt walls, reinforced with lime mortar and punctuated by watchtowers, were designed to deter sieges from crusader forces or rival Islamic factions. The site's elevation provided not just a vantage, but a psychological edge, a place where the Mamluks could monitor caravans laden with spices and silks, ensuring the flow of commerce remained under their watchful eye. In those days, the fortress hummed with the subtle rhythm of preparedness, its granaries stocked and cisterns brimming, all while the wind carried the soft rustle of palm fronds from oases below. Yet, as the stars began to prick the velvet sky, a gentle enigma enveloped the place, like a lullaby half forgotten in the night. What led to the abandonment of Kalat Siman in the mid-13th century? The ruins, with their tumble-down arches and fractured columns, offer clues wrapped in the quiet mystery of decay. Reports from the American schools of Oriental research detail how the site, once thriving, showed signs of sudden desertion around 1260, perhaps hastened by the seismic shifts of the era. The Mamluks, ever pragmatic, might have faced pressures from Mongol incursions or internal realignments, but the true catalyst remains elusive, a puzzle etched into the sandstone. One envisions the warriors, their chainmail swaying like leaves in a breeze, standing guard as the first hints of unrest stirred. The air grew thick with the scent of approaching storms, the wind picking up to carry whispers of distant battles. Yet no cataclysmic event scarred the stones overtly. In the soft glow of moonlight, the sensory tapestry of Kalat Siman unfolds like a dream. The crumbling stones, warm from the day's sun, release a faint, comforting warmth underfoot, their surfaces etched with the faint carvings of long-forgotten masons. Touch them, and you feel the grainy texture, worn smooth by wind and time, each crevice holding stories of hands that once labored here. The wind, ever present, howls through the empty courtyards with a soothing cadence, like a mother's sigh, carrying the subtle aroma of wild thyme that clings to the hillsides at night. The cool air brushes against the skin, a gentle reminder of the desert's vast embrace, while the distant call of a desert owl punctuates the silence, its hoots echoing off the walls in a rhythmic lull. The strategic importance of such a site was no mere accident of geography, as detailed in archaeological surveys from the 1930. Calat Simon's design incorporated elements of earlier Byzantine fortifications, adapted by the Mamluks for their defensive needs. Its location allowed control over key passes where armies could be waylaid or allies welcomed. A chessboard piece in the grand game of medieval geopolitics. The warriors, with their chainmail glinting under torchlight, embodied this vigilance, their patrols a dance of duty amid the arid expanse. One might imagine them sharing quiet words at the end of a shift, the clink of their armor a soft counterpoint to the wind's song, their wit as dry as the sands, perhaps a murmured jest about the stubbornness of stones that outlast empires. But the enigma deepens as one wanders the ruins, the mystery of decline wrapping around like a shawl against the chill. Why did the inhabitants vanish so abruptly? Excavations have uncovered pottery shards and rusted tools scattered as if in mid-use, suggesting a hasty departure rather than a gradual fade. Perhaps it was the aftershocks of natural disasters, like the earthquakes that plagued the region in the 13th century. Their rumbles felt as far as Antioch, or maybe economic shifts drew resources elsewhere, leaving the fortress to the elements. The wind, in its eternal howl, seems to carry fragments of these tales, brushing against the ears with the scent of ancient fires long extinguished. In a detached observation, one notes the consequences. Families uprooted, their lives reshaped by forces beyond their control. The stronghold reduced to a whisper in the desert's vast library. As dawn approaches, the scene shifts to subtler details. The first light caresses the chainmail of imaginary sentinels, turning it to a soft silver, while the stones release a morning dew that glistens like forgotten tears. The air fills with the faint, invigorating scent of blooming desert flowers, their petals unfurling in quiet defiance. Here, in this lullaby of ruins, the mystery of Calat Simon invites reflection, a calming reminder that all strongholds, no matter how mighty, eventually yield to time's gentle erosion. Yet, even as the sun rises, the story does not end. The winds of history continue to blow, carrying echoes toward new horizons, where other tales await in the shadows of forgotten places. As the light grows, one feels the pull onward to the next whisper of the past. Word count 1,500 in the heart of 13th century Cairo, where the Nile's gentle current whispered secrets to the ancient stones. The life of a Mamluk emir unfolded like a tapestry, woven from threads of gold and silk. Picture, if you will, an emir reclining in the cool shadows of a tiled palace, his tunic shimmering with intricate embroidery of burnished gold that caught the afternoon light like distant stars. These were men risen from humble origins, transformed by fate and fortune into lords of splendor. Their days, a symphony of quiet luxury that echoed through the labyrinthine halls of power. The emir's palace stood as a monument to opulence, its walls adorned with azure tiles that gleamed like the surface of a tranquil sea, each one handcrafted by artisans whose fingers danced with the precision of ancient rituals. Within these chambers, the air hung heavy with the warm aroma of saffron, a spice so precious it arrived on camel caravans from distant lands, its golden hue mirroring the threads that adorned the emir's garments. As he moved through his domain, the soft rustle of his silk robes whispered against the polished marble floors, a subtle melody that spoke of effortless wealth, untouched by the clamor of the world outside. Mornings began with a ritual of renewal, the emir awakening to the faint scent of rosewater sprinkled by silent attendants. They would drape him in layers of fine linen, each piece embroidered with motifs of flowering vines and celestial patterns, symbols drawn from the court records of the era that celebrated the harmony between earth and heaven. These garments, heavy with the weight of gold thread, felt like a second skin, cool and comforting against the rising heat of the day. Seated upon cushions of plush velvet, dyed in hues of deep crimson and emerald, the emir would break his fast with delicacies that tantalized the senses. Dates plump and sweet, their skins glistening like polished jewels, and flatbreads brushed with olive oil that carried the earthy fragrance of sun-baked groves. As the sun climbed higher, the palace transformed into a haven of repose. Courtiers and guests gathered in vast halls where arched windows let in slivers of light, filtering through lattices carved from rare woods that exhaled a faint, resinous perfume. Here, the emir hosted gatherings that were less feasts and more dreams made manifest, with tables laden under the glow of brass lamps, etched with delicate filigree, the air filled with the subtle spice of cumin-laced stews, simmered slowly until their flavors bloomed like the gardens beyond the walls, where fountains murmured softly and citrus trees released their zesty essence on the breeze. One might imagine the emir, his eyes half-lidded in contentment, reaching for a goblet of cooled sherbet, its icy sweetness a balm against the warmth of the afternoon. The drink, infused with hints of cardamom and honey, slid down the throat like liquid poetry, a testament to the emir's access to the finest provisions. As noted in the meticulous accounts of Mamluk court chroniclers like al-Makrazi, these records speak of emirs who spared no expense, their tables a canvas for culinary artistry, pigeon stuffed with almonds and rice, their tender meat releasing aromas that mingled with the smoky notes of incense burning in ornate braziers. Evenings brought a deeper layer of enchantment as the palace came alive with the soft strumming of lutes and the gentle cadence of poetry recited in hushed tones. The emir, surrounded by companions in tunics equally resplendent, would recline on divans piled high, with cushions that cradled the body like clouds. Silk from the looms of Damascus draped the furniture, its surface smooth and cool to the touch, embroidered with patterns of swirling arabesques that seemed to shift in the flickering candlelight. The room would fill with the perfume of jasmine oil, applied sparingly to wrists and necks, creating an invisible veil that softened the air and invited whispers of wit and wisdom. Yet, amid this symphony of sensory delights, there lingered a quiet mystery, one that added a subtle intrigue to the emir's world without disturbing its calm. Whispers among the palace walls spoke of treasures amassed by these emir's vaults, filled with gemstones that glowed like captured fireflies, and chests of coins stamped with the likenesses of long-forgotten sultans. Court records from the time, preserved in the annals of Ibn Tagriberdi, hint at hoards of gold dinars and pearl necklaces, items that vanished as mysteriously as they appeared. Legend has it that one emir, whose name is lost to the sands of time, concealed a fortune in a hidden chamber beneath his palace, accessible only through a labyrinth of secret passages. These passages, etched into the very foundations of Cairo, were said to be guarded by mechanisms of ingenious design, their mechanisms clicking softly like the heartbeat of the city itself. What became of this trove remains unknown, perhaps spirited away during the shifting tides of power, leaving behind only faint echoes in the minds of those who pondered the ephemerality of wealth. In these moments of reflection, the emir might pause, his fingers tracing the edge of a golden plate, and muse on the transient nature of his opulence. For all its grandeur, the life of an emir was a delicate balance, a dance of light and shadow, where every jewel and spice told a story of journeys across deserts and seas. The palace gardens, with their winding paths lined by fragrant myrtle bushes, offered a place for such contemplations, where the rustle of leaves in the evening wind carried a whisper of the unknown, reminding all that even the most lavish existences held secrets yet to be unveiled. As the night deepened, the emir would retire to his private quarters, where the air grew still and the scents of the day lingered like fading memories. Here, under canopies of embroidered silk that billowed gently with the breeze from open balconies, he found solace in the simple luxury of a well-made bed, its linens woven from the finest cotton and scented with lavender. The world outside might hum with the distant calls of the city, but within these walls, time slowed to a lullaby's rhythm, each breath a reminder of the quiet joy in abundance. Such was the essence of an emir's life, a realm where wealth was not merely possessed, but savored, its details etched into the very fabric of daily existence. From the tactile pleasure of a gem-studded ring sliding onto a finger to the auditory delight of water trickling in marble basins, Every element conspired to create a haven of peace, and yet the mystery of those lost treasures, those elusive caches that court records suggest were never fully accounted for, added a layer of gentle enigma, a subtle wit in the grand tapestry of history. As this tale of opulence draws to a close, one cannot help but feel the pull of curiosity, wondering what other stories lie hidden in the shadows of Cairo's past, waiting to be explored in the segments that follow. In the hushed light of a Cairo dawn, where the Nile's whisper met the ancient stones, young Mamluk recruits stirred in their modest barracks, dressed in simple linen tunics, light as whispers against their skin. They stepped into vast, sandy courtyards that stretched like golden seas under the rising sun. These were no ordinary youths, but slaves transformed into soldiers, their days woven with the rhythms of discipline and repetition, a dance of preparation for battles, yet unseen. The air carried the faint scent of baked earth and distant spices, a gentle cradle for the soul amid the day's demands. Each morning began with a soft patter of feet on sand, as instructors veterans with voices like low winds guided the boys through their first exercises. They moved in unison, stretching limbs that ached from the previous day's toil, their bodies bending and unfolding like young palms in a breeze. Ibn Battuta, the wandering scholar who once observed such scenes in his travels through Egypt, noted the meticulous care in these routines, where every gesture built endurance without haste. The youths would start with simple runs along the courtyard's perimeter, the sand yielding softly beneath their soles, kicking up clouds that danced in the sunlight. The air grew warm, carrying the earthy taste of dust on their lips, a subtle reminder of the desert's embrace. As the sun climbed higher, the focus shifted to archery, the heart of their training. In lines across the courtyard, the boys donned leather bracers, their tunics fluttering lightly in the occasional breeze. Bows of yew and horn, smoothed by countless hands, were drawn with careful precision. The twang of strings released a sound like a sigh through the air, soft and resonant, echoing faintly against the surrounding walls. Arrows arced gracefully, cutting through the hazy warmth, their feathers whispering as they found their marks in distant targets' straw bundles tied to wooden posts. One might imagine the instructors murmuring corrections, their words flowing like a lullaby. Feel the bow's breath, let it guide your hand. The dusty air settled on their skin, a fine layer that cooled as sweat evaporated, turning each practice into a meditative rhythm. These sessions were not mere play. They drew from traditions Ibn Battuta described as both rigorous and reverent. He recounted how Mamluk trainers emphasized accuracy over speed, teaching the youths to visualize their targets as if in a dream. A boy might pause, arrow nocked, eyes narrowing at the distant form, the world narrowing to the bow's curve and the string's tension. The release brought a momentary hush, followed by the soft thud of impact, a sound as satisfying as a door closing on a quiet night. sensory memories lingered the warmth of the wood against calloused fingers, the faint oil sent from the bowstring, the way sunlight glinted off polished arrowheads, turning them to fleeting stars. But archery was only one thread in the tapestry of their regimen. Afternoons brought horsemanship, where the youths learned to merge with their mounts in the courtyards, open spaces. Ibn Battuta spoke of how these slaves, often from distant lands like the steppes or the Caucasus, brought innate talents that were honed here. They mounted sturdy horses, their linen tunics billowing like sails, and practiced controlling the animals with subtle shifts of weight and rein. The horses' hooves drummed a steady beat on the sand, a soothing percussion that blended with the calls of circling birds overhead. The air filled with the warm, musky scent of horse and rider, a comforting aroma that spoke of partnership forged through repetition. In these moments, the trainers introduced elements of melee combat, though always with a measured pace. The youths paired off, wooden swords in hand, their movements deliberate and flowing. The clash of practice blades was muted, like distant waves on a shore, never harsh or frantic. One could sense the subtle wit in the instructor's guidance, a quiet jest in their advice. Strike as if inviting your opponent to dance, not to duel. Ibn Battuta observed that such training avoided brutality, focusing instead on the poetry of balance and timing. The sand absorbed the impacts, softening falls and turns, while the sun's warmth wrapped around them like a blanket, easing the strain. Yet, amid this structured world, a mystery lingered like a shadow at dusk, the enigma of unrecorded training manuals. Ibn Battuta hinted at oral traditions passed down through generations, secrets never etched into scrolls or bound in leather. These regimens, he suggested, were guarded knowledge, whispered in barracks and demonstrated in the courtyards, but never fully captured in writing. One might ponder the lost wisdom, perhaps detailed sequences for drawing a bow under fatigue, or chants that synchronized breaths during long rides. The air seemed to hold these unspoken lessons, a faint hum in the wind that carried tales of forgotten masters. It was as if the sand itself preserved the echoes, grains shifting to reveal patterns only the initiated could read. A subtle puzzle that invited contemplation rather than frustration. As the day waned, the routines evolved into evening reflections. The youths gathered in circles, reciting memorized forms under the fading light, their voices blending into a gentle murmur. The courtyard, now cooled by the descending sun, carried the scent of evening meals, dates, and flatbreads from nearby kitchens. Ibn Battuta noted how this phase reinforced mental discipline, with trainers weaving in historical anecdotes, not of specific heroes like Baybars, but of abstract virtues drawn from the Mamluk's collective past. The stars began to emerge, twinkling like distant campfires, and the youth's movements slowed, each breath a step toward rest. Through it all, the training was a symphony of senses, each element designed to build not just warriors, but resilient souls, the warmth of the sun on their backs, the rhythmic twang of bows, the earthy taste of dust. These were the threads that wove their days into a cohesive whole. Ibn Battuta's accounts painted a picture of transformation, where young slaves emerged as elite guards, their skills a testament to patient cultivation. Yet the mystery of those unrecorded manuals added a layer of intrigue, a quiet wonder that these methods endured through word and deed alone, evolving like the Nile's flow in the quiet evenings as the courtyards emptied and the youths retired. One could almost hear the whisper of future generations carrying these traditions forward. The routines, so meticulously practiced, promised a legacy of strength wrapped in subtlety, a calming assurance that even in the face of uncertainty, the sands of Cairo held their secrets well. And as the night deepened, the scene faded like a dream, leaving space for what comes next, the echoes of empires built on such foundations. In the quiet heart of Cairo's sprawling citadel, where the Nile's distant murmur blended with the soft rustle of palm fronds, the Mamluk barracks stood as a haven of worn stone and shadowed corners. It was the 13th century, a time when the sun-baked walls held the echoes of men far from their homelands, their lives woven into the fabric of Egypt's defense. Here, in the dim glow of oil lanterns that flickered like fireflies against the dusk, soldiers rested on simple straw mats, their cotton tunics soft from years of wear, and washing in the river's cool waters. The air carried the faint scent of baked earth and lingering incense, a soothing balm after the day's routines, inviting a sense of peace that settled over the space like a gentle blanket. These men, drawn from distant steppes and rugged mountains, lay side by side in the long, low chambers, their bodies eased onto mats that creaked softly under the slightest shift. The sound was a constant, rhythmic whisper, like the breath of the barracks itself, each creak a reminder of the countless nights that had passed before. A lantern's warm glow cast elongated shadows across the walls, painting the rough-hewn stones in hues of amber and gold, while the faint aroma of sesame oil from the lamps mingled with the earthy tang of straw. In this shared space, camaraderie bloomed like the jasmine that crept along the outer walls, its sweet perfume drifting in on the evening breeze. One soldier, his tunic frayed at the edges from the grind of daily chores, propped himself on an elbow to share a story with his neighbor. Remember the market vendor who swore his dates could cure any ache? He said, his voice a low, melodic rumble that carried a hint of wry amusement. The other chuckled softly, the sound barely disturbing the air, as they passed a clay cup of watered-down mint tea between them. The tea's cool, herbal bite offered a small comfort, its flavor a quiet nod to the gardens beyond the barracks, where such leaves were plucked at dawn. These moments, simple and unhurried, formed the backbone of their days, far removed from the clamor of the city streets or the weight of their duties. The barracks life unfolded in a steady rhythm. From the first light, when the call to prayer echoed faintly through the air, to the evening when shadows lengthened and conversations turned introspective. Mornings began with the soldiers rising from their mats, the straw rustling like whispered secrets as they shook off the night's stiffness. They donned their tunics, the cotton light against their skin, a practical shield against the day's heat. Breakfast was a communal affair. Bowls of flatbread and chickpeas shared on low wooden tables, the warm scent of freshly baked dough filling the room and drawing them together. One man might dip his bread into a simple olive oil mixture, its rich, grassy taste evoking memories of olive groves in distant lands, while another savored the subtle crunch of chickpeas, roasted over an open flame that crackled with a comforting familiarity. As the sun climbed higher, the soldiers moved through their routines with a quiet efficiency, tending to the horses in the stables nearby, or mending gear in the courtyard. Yet it was in the quieter hours that their bonds truly deepened. In the afternoons, when the heat pressed down like a heavy hand, they retreated to the shaded corners of the barracks, where the stone floors retained a coolness that seeped through their tunics. There they lounged on their mats, the fabric soft and worn, its threads telling tales of endless use. Conversations flowed easily, laced with the subtle wit that lightened the load of their existence. If the wind keeps whispering secrets through these walls, one might jest, I'll have to learn its language just to keep up. The others would smile, the glow of a lantern catching the glint in their eyes as the air filled with the faint, soothing hum of voices blending like the notes of a distant lute. Evenings brought a deeper calm, the barracks transforming into a sanctuary of shared stories and silent reflections. The soldiers gathered in small groups, their mats arranged in circles under the flickering lanterns, the light casting a golden haze that softened the lines of fatigue on their faces. One man, perhaps from the Black Sea coasts, spoke of vast horizons and endless seas, his words painting pictures as vivid as the stars emerging outside. The scent of evening meals, lentil stews simmered with cumin, and garlic wafted through the air, its hearty aroma wrapping around them like an embrace. They ate with their hands, the warmth of the food seeping into their fingers, a simple ritual that fostered unity. This stew holds more stories than the chronicler's scrolls. Another might quip, his tone laced with gentle humor, as they passed the pot and savored each bite. Yet, amid this tapestry of everyday life, there lingered a quiet mystery, one that wrapped around the soldiers like the shadows in the corners of the room. Their names, so often unrecorded in the annals of Mamluk chronicles, slipped away like sand through fingers, lost to the winds of time. Historians like Ibn Taghraberdi noted the deeds of emirs and sultans, their pages filled with grand events. But the common soldiers remained elusive figures, their identities fading into the anonymity of service. One might wonder, as the lantern light dimmed, about the man on the mat beside you. Did he hail from the rugged Caucasus, his eyes holding tales of snow-capped peaks, or from the sun scorched plains of Central Asia, where the air tasted of dust and adventure. This enigma added a layer of poignancy to their camaraderie, a subtle reminder that their bonds, though fleeting, were all the more precious for their impermanence. In the glow of the lamps, with the creak of mats and the soft murmur of breath, one could almost feel the weight of those unspoken names. Like echoes in an empty hall, the days blended seamlessly, each one marked by the same sensory symphony. The cool press of stone against bare feet, the rhythmic drip of water from a nearby fountain, the distant call of night birds as darkness fell. Sometimes a soldier might pause to trace the patterns in the lantern's flame, its dance a hypnotic swirl that mirrored the flow of their conversations. They spoke of dreams and distant families, their words carrying a lullaby like cadence that eased the soul. If the stars could speak, one might muse with a faint smile. They'd tell of men like us, woven into the night sky, yet unseen. The air grew heavy, with the scent of night-blooming flowers drifting in from the courtyard. Their perfume, a gentle intrusion that softened the edges of reality. Through it all, the barracks fostered a sense of belonging, a quiet defiance against the vastness of the world outside. The soldiers' tunics, though plain and unadorned, became symbols of their shared identity. Their straw mats a canvas for the stories they wove together. Historical accounts from al-Makrzi's writings hint at such lives, describing the Mamluks as a brotherhood forged in the crucible of duty. Their daily existence, a testament to resilience and mutual support. Yet, in these unassuming moments, away from the grand narratives, one could glimpse the human heart of it all. The laughter shared over a simple meal, the comfort of a companion's presence in the dim light. As the night deepened, the lanterns burned low, their glow fading to a soft ember that painted the room in hues of warmth and shadow. The creaking mats settled into silence, and the soldiers drifted into sleep, their breaths rising and falling in harmonious rhythm. In this lullaby of routine, the mystery of their unrecorded names lingered like a gentle fog, a reminder that some stories endure not in ink, but in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. And as the first hints of dawn approached, whispering of another day, one might feel the subtle pull toward what lay beyond, perhaps the markets of Cairo, or the call of future adventures, waiting just out of reach. In the golden haze of a 13th century Egyptian dawn, the vast desert fields stretched like a silken tapestry under the rising sun, where the Mamluk warriors prepared for their ancient craft of horsemanship. Far from the bustling streets of Cairo, these elite riders gathered amid dunes that whispered secrets of the wind, their leather vests creaking softly as they mounted steeds bred for endurance and speed. Here, in this serene expanse, the rhythm of training unfolded like a gentle melody, drawing from traditions etched in the sands of time. As chronicled by the historian al-Makrzi in his meticulous accounts of the Sultanate's military prowess, the riders, young men forged in the crucible of servitude and discipline, moved with a quiet grace that belied their martial intent. Their vests, crafted from supple, leather-tanned to a warm, earthy hue, hugged their forms as they adjusted stirrups and reins, the material yielding like a second skin against the cool morning air. As the first rays kissed the horizon, they urged their horses into a trot, the steady hoofbeats drumming against the packed sand like a distant heartbeat, echoing across the empty plains. The breeze carried the faint scent of sage and sun-warmed earth, a soothing balm that wrapped around them, mingling with the salty tang of sweat from both man and beast. Al-Makrizi, in his chronicles, spoke of these sessions as essential rituals, where the Mamluks honed skills passed down through generations of slave soldiers turned sultans. They practiced formation drills, guiding their mounts in fluid arcs and sudden halts, the horses responding with an almost intuitive understanding. One could imagine the scene as the riders leaned forward, their hands steady on braided reins, feeling the powerful surge of muscles beneath them, the air filled with the soft rustle of manes tossing in the wind, each strand catching the light like threads of gold, while the sandy breezes whispered across faces, carrying grains that danced like fireflies in the sunlight. In these moments, the training took on a meditative quality, a lullaby of motion that soothed the soul even as it built unyielding strength. The horses, descendants of breeds from distant lands like the swift barbs of North Africa or the sturdy Arabs, galloped in perfect synchrony, their hooves kicking up plumes of fine dust that hung in the air like a translucent veil. Al-Makrizi noted how these animals were selected for their intelligence and stamina, trained from colts to navigate the treacherous desert terrain without falter. The riders would signal with the slightest pressure of their knees, the leather of their vests stretching and creaking in harmony with the horses' strides, a subtle symphony that spoke of trust, forged through endless repetition. As the sun climbed higher, casting a warm glow that bathed the fields in amber, the sensory tapestry grew richer, the rhythmic thud of hooves blended with the occasional whinny, a sound as melodic as a flute in the vast quietude, while the riders' breaths came in steady puffs, visible in the cooler shadows of the dunes. One might catch the faint, earthy aroma of oiled saddles and the metallic hint of stirrups, all underscored by the pervasive warmth of the sun on skin. A gentle embrace that lulled the mind into focus. Al-Makrizi described how these exercises not only sharpened combat readiness, but also cultivated a profound bond between rider and horse, a partnership that turned the chaos of battle into an elegant dance. Yet woven into this serene routine was a whisper of mystery, one that Al-Makrizi himself pondered in his writings, the enigma of lost horse breeds that once roamed these sands. Legends spoke of magnificent lines, perhaps the elusive Egyptian desert strain, said to possess an otherworldly speed and resilience, vanishing as mysteriously as the stars at dawn. These breeds, celebrated for their glossy coats that shimmered like polished obsidian under the desert sun, were thought to have been bred in secret by early Mamluk masters. Their bloodlines intertwined with the very essence of the Nile's gifts. As the riders pushed their mounts through simulated charges, one could almost feel the ghosts of these vanished equines in the wind. Their absence, a subtle puzzle that added a layer of wonder to the training grounds. Why had they disappeared? Perhaps carried off by wars, or diluted through careless breeding, leaving only echoes in Al-Makrzy's pages. A riddle that invited quiet reflection rather than bold speculation. The sessions progressed with a calming cadence, each gallop a brushstroke on the canvas of the day. Riders in their leather vests would circle back to water troughs where the horses drank deeply, their muzzles dipping into cool streams that trickled from hidden oases, the liquid gurgling softly like a lullaby. The air grew fragrant with the scent of damp earth and fresh herbs crushed underfoot, a respite that allowed for moments of wit among the warriors. One rider might jest, in a voice as light as the breeze, about how his steed outpaced the wind itself, only to be met with a knowing smile. For in these fields, humor was a gentle thread that wove through the discipline, easing the rigor without diminishing its purpose. Al-Makrzy's records detailed how such training emphasized not just speed, but precision, with riders practicing leaps over low dunes, the sand yielding softly beneath the horses' feet, creating a muffled thump that resonated like a heartbeat in the stillness. The sensory details were profound. The warmth of the leather against the riders' backs, the cool slip of reins through calloused fingers, and the ever-present breeze that carried whispers of distant palms. These elements combined to form a hypnotic rhythm, where time seemed to slow, allowing the mind to wander through the annals of history, even as bodies moved in unison. As midday approached, the heat intensified, wrapping the scene in a blanket of golden light, the horses' flanks glistening with a fine sheen of sweat that caught the sun's rays. The riders paused occasionally, dismounting to adjust girths or share a simple meal of dates and bread, the flavors earthy and comforting, grounding them in the moment. Al-Makrzy noted the importance of these breaks, not merely for rest, but to foster camaraderie, a subtle wit emerging in tales of past rides, where a horse's misstep led to unexpected adventures, always recounted with a detached charm that turned potential mishaps into fond memories. Throughout, the mystery of the lost breeds lingered like a soft shadow, intriguing the riders as they resumed their gallops. Perhaps, as Al-Makrzy suggested, these horses carried traits now forgotten, their speed a whisper from an age when the desert held untold secrets. One could envision them in the riders' minds, phantom shapes galloping alongside, their coats rippling in the wind, an enigma that added depth to the training's purpose. This unspoken puzzle served as a reminder that not all knowledge endures, Yet, in its absence, a gentle curiosity flourished. As the afternoon waned, the sun began its descent, painting the skies in hues of rose and lavender, the hoofbeats growing softer against the cooling sand. The riders, their leather vests now warmed by the day's labors, guided their mounts back toward the encampments, the sensory symphony fading into a peaceful hush. Al-Makrzy's chronicles captured this essence, portraying horsemanship as more than mere skill. It was a legacy etched in the heart of the desert, a calming ritual that bridged the past and present. In closing, as the stars emerged like scattered pearls above, one might ponder the broader tapestry of the Mamluk world, where such disciplines wove into the fabric of history, leading seamlessly to tales yet untold. The gentle rhythm of the desert fields, with its hoofbeats and breezes, lingered in the air, a soothing prelude to what lay beyond. In the heart of 13th century Cairo, where the Nile's gentle murmur blended with the city's eternal hum, a modest forge nestled among the winding alleys glowed like a quiet ember in the fading light. The air carried a whisper of history, as skilled Mamluk blacksmiths bent over their anvils, their aprons stained with the soot of generations. These artisans, descendants of warriors turned craftsmen, worked with a rhythm as old as the sands, forging swords that would defend empires and etch legends into time. No grand halls or opulent displays disturbed this scene. It was a world of steady hands and glowing metal, where each strike echoed softly, inviting the mind to drift into a peaceful reverie. The blacksmiths moved with the grace of dancers in a shadowed hall, their bodies clad in simple leather aprons that hung like worn cloaks, protecting them from the forge's warm embrace. One master smith, his face etched with lines of quiet wisdom, selected a billet of steel from a pile beside the hearth, the metal sourced from distant mines and traded through caravans that crossed the desert under starlit skies, held secrets within its folds, patterns that hinted at ancient techniques, perhaps born in the forges of Damascus or the hills of Persia. He placed it carefully into the heart of the fire, where embers pulsed like distant stars, their soft orange glow casting a gentle light across the room. As the steel heated, the air thickened with the scent of charring wood and molten iron, a fragrance that wrapped around the senses like a comforting blanket. The forge itself was a humble structure, its walls blackened by years of service, with tools arranged in orderly rows, hammers of varying sizes, tongs that gleamed dully, and quenching troughs filled with oil that shimmered subtly in the dim light. The master smith's apprentice, a young man with steady eyes, pumped the bellows with deliberate motions, each breath of air feeding the flames until they danced lazily, their warmth radiating outward like a sigh. With a pair of tongs, the smith drew the glowing billet from the fire, its surface rippling with heat that painted the air in hazy waves. He laid it on the anvil, a massive block of iron worn smooth by countless blows, and raised his hammer. The first strike rang out, a clear, resonant clang that blended with the evening's chorus, the distant call of musicians, and the rustle of palm leaves in the breeze. It was not a harsh sound, but one that soothed, like the steady beat of a heart in repose, each impact shaping the metal with precision and care. The process unfolded like a lullaby, each step measured and unhurried. The smith hammered the steel, turning it rhythmically to ensure even distribution of heat and strength. Sparks flew in lazy arcs, tiny points of light that flickered and died like fireflies in the night, their brief glow adding a touch of whimsy to the scene. The air grew heavy with the metallic tang, mingling with the earthy aroma of the forge's coals, which smoldered with a deep, inviting warmth. One could almost feel the metal yielding, its molecules aligning under the hammer's gentle insistence, forging not just a weapon, but a story etched in steel. Archaeological remnants from later centuries, unearthed in the sands near Cairo, speak of these swords with a quiet reverence. Fragments of blades, discovered in the ruins of old armories, reveal intricate engravings, geometric patterns, and flowing scripts that archaeologists attribute to the Mamluk era's masterful craftsmanship. These designs, drawn from Islamic art and the influences of conquered lands, were not mere decorations. They were integral to the blade's balance and resilience. Yet, amid this artistry, a subtle mystery lingers, one that archaeological finds have only partially unveiled. Certain weapon designs, appearing in Mamluk artifacts without clear predecessors, seem to emerge from the ether, their origins lost to time. Perhaps they were innovations born in secret collaborations between blacksmiths and wandering scholars, or inspirations drawn from dreams under the desert moon. This enigma, untouched by the opulence of courts or the rigor of military drills, adds a layer of intrigue, like a half-forgotten melody that echoes faintly in the mind. As the blade took shape, the smith paused to inspect his work, his fingers tracing the edge with a feather-light touch. The steel, now cooled slightly, held a faint sheen, its surface whispering of the fire's kiss. He returned it to the forge, where the embers glowed anew, their soft, light painting shadows that danced across the walls like playful spirits. The apprentice wiped his brow, his movements slow and deliberate, and the two shared a knowing glance, a moment of silent camaraderie that spoke of shared toil and the satisfaction of creation. In these forges, far from the clamor of battles, the blacksmiths wove strength into every fiber, drawing upon techniques honed through generations, as evidenced by the Damascus-style blades found in medieval excavations. The quenching followed, a ritual as soothing as a river's flow. The smith plunged the heated blade into the oil trough, where it hissed softly. The sound, like a gentle exhalation, bubbles rose to the surface, carrying with them the faint scent of heated oil and metal, an aroma that evoked the earth's deep mysteries. This step, crucial for tempering the steel, transformed the blade into something resilient yet flexible, capable of withstanding the trials of conflict without shattering. Historical examples, such as the swords recovered from the Bari Mamluk period sites, confirm this process, with their blades showing the distinctive wavy patterns of folded steel achieved through repeated heating and hammering. Yet even as the blade cooled, the mystery of untraced designs persisted. Archaeologists pondering these artifacts often note anomalous blades with motifs that defy known influences, as if the blacksmiths had accessed knowledge from realms unseen. One such example, a sword hilt unearthed near the citadel of Cairo, bears engravings that blend geometric precision with organic flourishes, suggesting a fusion of cultures not recorded in contemporary chronicles. Was it the work of a lone innovator, toiling in the shadows of the forge, or a guarded secret passed down through whispered oaths? This puzzle, distinct from tales of conquest or courtly life, invites contemplation, its subtlety weaving through the narrative like a thread of silk in the night. With the blade now formed, the smith turned to finishing touches, filing the edges to a keen sharpness that caught the light in a soft glimmer. The rhythmic scrape of the file against metal created a lullaby of its own, a steady whisper that blended with the forge's ambient warmth. Sensory details abounded: the tactile grit of the tools, the visual play of light on polished steel, and the auditory tapestry of distant city sounds filtering through the open door. Each element contributed to a scene of tranquil industry, where the blacksmith's world was one of creation rather than destruction. As the night deepened, the forge's glow dimmed to a comforting ember, and the smiths prepared to rest. Their work, rooted in the soil of history and the fire of innovation, left behind blades that would carry the essence of Cairo's soul. Yet the mystery of those untraced designs lingered, a gentle enigma inviting further exploration. And so, as the stars wheeled overhead, thoughts turned softly to the next chapter, where other stories await in the quiet folds of time. Word count 1,500 in the hushed heart of 13th century Cairo, where the Nile's whisper met the ancient stones of the city. The Mamluk soldiers sought solace in the cool shadows of the mosques. These warriors, forged in the fires of conquest and clad in simple tunics of linen and wool, turned from the clamor of the streets to the quiet rhythm of faith. As the sun dipped low, painting the minarets in hues of amber and rose, they gathered not as conquerors, but as humble seekers, their swords set aside for the sanctity of prayer. Here, amidst the echoing domes and intricate arches, the air grew thick with devotion, a gentle balm for souls weary from the march of empires. The call to prayer at hand floated through the air like a soft breeze, carrying whispers of eternity. It began with the muezzin's voice, a melody as smooth as silk threads woven in the bazaars. Drawing the soldiers inward, they entered the mosque in quiet procession, their tunics brushing against the cool marble floors, the fabric still warm from the day's heat. Each man moved with deliberate grace, removing their sandals at the threshold, the leather straps whispering against stone. The scent of frankincense swirled gently, rising from brass burners like faint clouds at dawn, mingling with the earthy aroma of aged prayer rugs. These rugs, faded from years of use, bore the imprints of countless prostrations, their patterns a tapestry of devotion that spoke of enduring faith. As they aligned in rows, shoulder to shoulder, the warriors knelt, their bodies mirroring the unity of their ranks. In these moments, the Mamluks were not defined by their origins, be they from the steppes of Central Asia or the distant lands beyond the sea, but by the shared cadence of their prayers. They recited verses from the Quran, the words flowing like a river's current, soft and unhurried. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, they intoned, their voices a gentle murmur that wove through the air, soothing as a mother's lullaby. The recitation carried a subtle rhythm, each syllable polished by repetition, evoking the wisdom of the Prophet's teachings as recorded in the Hadith. One soldier, his tunic embroidered with faint threads of blue, might close his eyes and whisper of patience in adversity, drawing from the sayings of Muhammad that spoke of steadfastness in the face of trials. The mosque itself became a sanctuary of senses, where the flicker of oil lamps cast a warm glow, dancing like fireflies in the dim light. The air was alive with the faint rustle of pages from worn copies of the Quran, their parchment edges softened by time and touch. A soldier's hand, calloused from the hilt of a sword, traced the intricate Arabic script, the ink flowing like dark rivers across the page. As they bowed in ruku, their backs arching in perfect symmetry, the faint scent of sandalwood from their garments blended with the incense, creating a cocoon of calm. It was here, in these sacred pauses, that the warriors found a fleeting peace, their prayers a bridge between the chaos of battle and the serenity of the divine. Yet, amidst this ritual harmony, there lingered a quiet mystery, the unwritten prayers of the soldiers, those silent supplications that never found their way into scrolls or chronicles. These were the words unspoken, born not from obligation, but from the depths of the heart, as ephemeral as the evening mist over the Nile. A Mamluk might stand after the formal salat, his eyes distant, and offer a personal plea for strength or forgiveness, his lips moving in barely perceptible motion, drawn from the essence of Islamic tradition, where the Quran encourages direct communion with God. These prayers were intimate, unrecorded echoes of vulnerability. One could imagine a warrior, his tunic damp with the sweat of the day's labors, murmuring for the souls of fallen comrades, his voice a thread too fine to capture in ink. This mystery added a layer of intrigue, a subtle wit in the way faith wove through the unseen, reminding that not all devotion was meant for the eyes of history. In the Friday congregations, or Juma, the mosques swelled with even greater numbers, the soldiers joining the city's faithful under the vast ceilings, adorned with geometric patterns. The imam led the sermon from the minbar, his words measured and melodic, drawing from historical accounts in texts like the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir to illustrate the virtues of piety. As the soldiers listened, the air grew heavy with the collective breath of hundreds, the soft exhalations mingling like a gentle wave. One might catch the faint taste of dates on the breeze, remnants of the pre-prayer meal shared in quiet corners, their sweetness a reminder of the Prophet's own simple habits. The warriors, in their tunics of muted earth tones, sat cross-legged, their postures relaxed, yet reverent, absorbing tales of early Muslim heroes who found strength in faith alone. Sensory details enveloped these gatherings, from the cool press of the stone against bare feet to the distant hum of pigeons cooing in the courtyards. The incense, perhaps a blend of myrrh and amber, curled lazily upward, its aroma evoking the ancient trade routes that had brought such luxuries to Cairo. A soldier's prayer beads, cool and smooth between his fingers, clicked softly in rhythm with his breaths, each bead a marker of introspection. These moments were not devoid of the world's weight. The Mamluks carried the scars of their lives, yet in prayer, they transformed them into offerings of humility. The Quran's verses on Tawhid, the oneness of God, resonated deeply, their soothing cadence a balm for turbulent minds. As the prayers concluded, the soldiers rose slowly, their movements like the unfolding of a flower at dusk. They exchanged quiet greetings of peace be upon you, the words carrying a warmth that lingered in the air. In these farewells, there was a subtle wit, a recognition that even warriors, bound by duty, could find levity in the shared absurdity of human frailty. One might smile faintly at the irony of men who commanded armies, yet knelt as equals before the divine. The mystery of their unwritten prayers persisted, a gentle enigma that suggested faith's true power lay beyond the written word, in the silent spaces where hearts conversed with the eternal. Through the annals of religious texts, such as the collections of Hadith by Bukhari, we glimpse the foundations of these practices, where the Prophet Muhammad emphasized regular prayer as a pillar of Islam. The Mamluks, many converted or raised in the faith, embodied this legacy, their devotions a testament to the continuity of tradition. Yet the personal, unwritten aspects remained elusive, a mystery that invited contemplation, much like the way the evening stars emerged one by one over Cairo's skyline. As the soldiers stepped back into the twilight, the mosque's doors closing behind them like a sigh, they carried the essence of their prayers into the night. The air, now cooler and laced with the scent of blooming jasmine from nearby gardens, whispered of continuity. In this serene rhythm, the Mamluk's religious life unfolded, a soothing tapestry of faith that bridged the mortal and the divine. And as the city settled into shadows, one might ponder the next chapter, where the threads of devotion intertwined with the broader weave of history. Word count 1500 in the heart of 13th century Cairo, where the Nile's gentle whisper met the ancient stones of the city. The bazaars unfolded like a tapestry, woven from threads of commerce and culture. Here, amid the labyrinthine alleys of Khan al-Khalili, Mamluk soldiers moved with the quiet assurance of warriors at ease, their linen cloaks swaying like pale sails in the breeze. These men, once slaves turned elite guardians of the realm, now stepped away from the fields of conquest to engage in the simple rituals of trade, their scarred hands reaching for the spices that perfumed the air. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden haze over the stalls, where vendors arranged their wares with meticulous care. A Mamluk warrior named Karim, his cloak dusted from distant campaigns, paused before a heap of cumin seeds, their earthy aroma rising like a soft incantation. He inhaled deeply, the scent evoking memories of far-off battles under starlit skies. Yet here it brought only peace. "Ah, my friend," he murmured to the merchant, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder fading into calm. "Your cumin rivals the gardens of Damascus." The merchant, a wiry man with a beard flecked in spice dust, chuckled softly, his eyes crinkling in the dim light. "And your coin, brave one, must match its worth, for even the winds carry tales of your valor." Around them, the bazaar hummed with a lullaby of sounds, the rhythmic clink of scales balancing weights, the murmur of hagglers speaking in hushed tones, and the occasional flutter of pigeons taking flight from rooftop perches. Crowds ebbed and flowed like the river nearby, their movements unhurried, a sea of robes and turbans blending into one another. Women in flowing garments carried baskets of dates, their sweet fragrance mingling with the cumin, creating a symphony of scents that wrapped around Karim like a comforting shawl. He ran his fingers over the seeds, feeling their gritty texture, a reminder of the earth's quiet bounty, far removed from the steel of his sword. Other soldiers joined the scene, their linen cloaks marked by faint embroidery, symbols of their ranks earned through loyalty and skill. Ibn Battuta, in his travels, spoke of such men with admiration, noting how they navigated the markets of Cairo with the same discipline they brought to the battlefield. He described the Mamluks as guardians who, in moments of respite, sought not gold or glory, but the simple pleasures of life, spices for their meals, herbs for their teas, and fabrics to mend their worn attire. Drawing from his accounts, one could imagine Karim bartering not just for cumin, but for bundles of coriander and saffron, their colors as vivid as the sunset. "What price for this saffron, O trader of secrets?" Karim asked, his words laced with a subtle wit, as if the spice held stories of its own, smuggled across deserts under the moon's watchful eye. The merchant leaned closer, his voice dropping to a soothing whisper. "For a warrior such as you, perhaps a tale in exchange." They say these markets once held records of every transaction, scrolls etched with ink from the Nile, chronicling the comings and goings of kings and commoners alike. Here lay the mystery, subtle and unspoken, of the lost market records, those ancient ledgers that vanished like whispers in the wind, leaving behind only fragments in the annals of time. Ibn Battuta himself alluded to such documents in his writings, marveling at the efficiency of Cairo's trade, but lamenting how wars and floods had claimed them, turning vibrant histories into elusive shadows. Karim nodded, his expression serene, as if the loss were a gentle puzzle rather than a tragedy, a reminder that not all stories endure. As the bartering continued, the air grew thick with the warmth of freshly baked bread from nearby ovens, its yeasty scent interweaving with the spices to create a cocoon of comfort. Another soldier, Farid, with a cloak frayed at the edges from years of service, examined a pile of peppercorns, their sharp, tingling aroma awakening his senses. Without stirring unrest, he pressed a few between his fingers, releasing a burst of flavor that danced on the tongue like a soft melody. This pepper, he said with a faint smile, carries the heat of distant lands, yet here it soothes like a mother's touch. The merchant, ever the storyteller, replied in kind, "Indeed, for the Mamluks who guard our gates, we offer only the finest, drawn from the trade routes Ibn Battuta traversed." The crowds parted gently as more warriors arrived, their presence a calming force amid the bustle. Children darted between legs, their laughter like the tinkling of distant bells, while elders sat on woven mats, sharing tales of bygone eras. Sensory details abounded, the cool touch of silk fabrics brushing against skin, the visual tapestry of colorful awnings fluttering in the breeze, and the auditory rhythm of camels' soft grunts as they carried loads through the alleys. One could almost taste the air, laced with hints of mint and rosewater from nearby stalls, a blend that Ibn Battuta praised for its ability to refresh the spirit after long journeys. In these interactions, the Mamluks revealed a side seldom seen, their bartering a dance of words and gestures, devoid of the opulence of emirs or the routine of barracks. Karim, having secured his cumin, moved to a stall of frankincense, its resinous smoke curling upward in lazy spirals, filling the space with a woody fragrance that evoked ancient rituals. Such scents, he mused, could lull even the fiercest storm to sleep. The merchant nodded, adding a touch of wit, and perhaps hide the secrets of those lost records buried in the smoke where no one can follow. As the afternoon waned, the bazaar's energy softened, the sun's rays lengthening into golden threads that painted the ground. Farid, now laden with his pepper, and a pouch of cloves, whose cloves' spicy sweetness lingered on his palate, exchanged final words with a vendor. "These spices," he said, "are like the threads of our lives, woven together in patterns we scarcely understand." Drawing from Ibn Battuta's observations, one might recall how he noted the Mamluks' role in sustaining Cairo's vibrancy, their trades ensuring the city's resilience against the tides of history. Yet the mystery of the lost records wove through it all, a gentle undercurrent Ibn Battuta hinted at archives once kept in the Sultan's vaults, detailing every bazaar transaction as a testament to the era's prosperity. But time, with its inexorable flow, had swept them away, perhaps carried off by raiders, or dissolved in the Nile's floods, leaving historians to ponder what tales they might have told. Karim, sensing the day's end, glanced at the horizon, his thoughts drifting to the enigma, a soft enigma that added depth without disturbance. In the fading light, the soldiers gathered their purchases, their linen cloaks now fragrant with the day's spoils. The bazaar's lullaby continued, a symphony of sensory delights that promised rest and reflection. As they departed, one might wonder, in the calm of the evening, what other mysteries lay waiting in the shadows of Cairo's storied past. And so, as the stars began to emerge like quiet guardians in the night sky, the scene in the bazaars faded, paving the way for tales yet to unfold. In the vast expanse of the Kipchak steppes, where the wind whispered secrets through endless grasslands, young lives began their unintended odyssey. It was the 13th century, a time when the world's edges blurred under the shadow of empires rising and falling like gentle waves on a distant sea. Here, amidst the rolling hills and wildflower-strewn plains, boys were born into clans of nomadic warriors, their days filled with the soft thud of hooves and the faint scent of sun warmed earth. Yet fate, that quiet weaver of destinies, drew them away from these cradles of freedom toward the unfamiliar sands of Egypt. The youths, often no more than 12 or 13 summers old, came from tribes scattered across the steppes lands that stretched from the Volga River to the fringes of the Altai Mountains. These were the descendants of Turkic peoples, their bloodlines intertwined with Mongol influences after the great storms of conquest that had swept through Asia. According to the chronicles of Al-Makrazi and Ibn Iyas, who recorded the comings and goings of that era with the precision of ancient scribes, these boys were selected not for their weaknesses, but for the strength hidden in their young frames. Slave traders, moving like shadows across the horizon, eyed them for their potential, seeing in their sturdy builds the makings of future guardians. It was a practice as old as the trade routes themselves, where necessity and ambition intertwined in the quiet commerce of human lives. As the seasons turned, the first leg of their journey unfolded under open skies. Picture the dusty caravans winding through the steppes, their wooden wheels creaking softly like the sigh of an old storyteller. The air carried the earthy aroma of packed soil and wild herbs, crushed underfoot by camels and horses plodding steadily onward. The boys, clad in ragged tunics, frayed at the edges from endless rides, huddled together for warmth. As the cool evening breezes swept in, one might imagine the subtle wit in their whispers. A boy murmuring to his companion about how the stars above seemed to mock their path, twinkling like distant fires they could never reach. The traders, draped in heavy cloaks that rustled against the wind, spoke little, their voices a low hum that blended with the rhythmic jingle of harnesses. These caravans traversed vast distances, crossing rivers that murmured secrets of forgotten lands, and fording streams where the water lapped gently at the banks, cool and refreshing against parched skin. Along the way, the mystery of their homelands began to take shape, a veil that grew thicker with each mile. The boys themselves, pulled from villages where family names and tribal lore were passed down like heirlooms, found their roots slipping away. In the Mamluk chronicles, there are hints of this enigma records that note how many arrived with tales of far-off places. Yet these stories faded like morning mist. Perhaps it was the trauma of separation, or the deliberate erasure by traders who sought to mold them anew. But their origins became untraced shadows. One chronicle from Al-Makrazi speaks of a youth who recalled a homeland of endless horizons and swift rivers, only to forget the exact paths that led there, as if the steps themselves conspired to guard their secrets. This gentle puzzle, woven into the fabric of their displacement, lent an air of quiet wonder to their plight, a reminder that some stories dissolve into the wind, leaving only echoes for the curious. As the caravans pressed southward, the landscape shifted, the grasslands giving way to arid plains where the sun hung like a golden lantern, casting a warm glow over everything it touched. The boys felt the change in the air, a drier heat that carried the faint spice of desert shrubs and the distant tang of salt from approaching seas. They traveled by day, the sun's rays kissing their skin with a soft warmth, and rested at night under canopies of stars that seemed to pulse with ancient rhythms. The traders, ever watchful, offered sparse comforts, bits of flatbread that crunched between teeth, its yeasty scent mingling with the smoky aroma of campfires. In these moments, a subtle wit emerged in the boys' interactions, a shared joke about how the camel's swaying gait mimicked the dance of their forgotten festivals, a light-hearted deflection from the weight of their circumstances. Eventually, the journey turned toward the Black Sea, where creaking ships awaited like patient guardians. The transition from land to water brought new sensations: the slap of waves against hulls, the salty spray that misted the air and left a lingering taste on lips. These vessels, described in the annals of Ibn Iyas as modest dhows with sails billowing like whispered breaths, carried the youths across the waters with a rocking motion that lulled them into uneasy dreams. The sea breeze carried the scent of brine and far-off storms, and the boys, now weary from weeks of travel, clung to the ship's rails, feeling the wood's rough texture under their fingers. One might hear the soft creak of timber, a sound as comforting as a cradle sway, while gulls cried overhead, their calls echoing like faint laments for lost homes. Upon reaching the ports of the Levant, the path continued southward, the ships docking at harbors where the air grew thick with the aroma of exotic spices and bustling markets. Here, the boys transferred to smaller vessels, or resumed overland treks, their ragged clothes now dusted with the fine grains of foreign soils. The mystery deepened as they moved, for in the chronicles there are accounts of youths who could no longer pinpoint the exact rivers or mountains of their birth. Was it the Kipchak's vastness that blurred these memories, or the traders' practice of renaming and reshaping identities? This untraced quality added a layer of intrigue, a gentle enigma that whispered of lands where the wind erased footprints and rivers changed course overnight. Finally, the Nile's embrace drew near, its waters flowing with a serene murmur that promised renewal. The boys arrived in Cairo not as conquerors, but as shadows of their former selves, stepping onto the riverbanks where the air was alive with the scent of blooming lotus and the distant hum of city life. Imagine them disembarking from creaking barges, their feet touching the sun-warmed stones, the fabric of their tunics whispering against their skin as they moved. The city unfolded before them, a tapestry of minarets and markets, the air filled with the soft calls of merchants and the faint spice of street foods. Yet in their eyes, one could glimpse the quiet mystery of homelands left behind, places that existed only in fragmented dreams, where the steppes' winds still echoed through it all. The consequences of this displacement unfolded with a detached grace, a reminder that history's currents carried both sorrow and possibility. The boys, now far from the steppes' embrace, stood at the threshold of a new world, their origins a fading whisper as the sun dips below Cairo's horizon, casting a golden hue over the Nile's gentle flow. We pause to reflect on these distant beginnings, ready to trace the threads that wove their stories onward. In the quiet expanse of the citadel yard, where the sun dipped low and cast a golden veil over the ancient stones, the Mamluk soldiers moved with a rhythm as steady as the Nile's flow. It was the 13th century, a time when discipline wove through the fabric of military life like an invisible thread, binding men to their oaths under the watchful eyes of their officers, clad in chainmail that whispered with each step. These leaders stood tall, their forms outlined against the warm sandstone walls, overseeing the drills with a precision born of generations. The air carried the faint scent of heated metal and desert dust, mingling with the distant call of a falcon circling above, as commands echoed softly, not harshly, through the evening light. The officers, descendants of slaves turned warriors, embodied the essence of Mamluk order as described in the chronicles of al-Makrazi. He spoke of them as guardians of an unyielding structure, where every movement in the yard was a testament to the art of control. One might imagine an officer, his chainmail glinting subtly in the fading daylight, gesturing with a steady hand to correct a soldier's stance. The mail links chinked gently, a sound like distant rain on leaves, as he paced the perimeter, his voice, firm yet measured, cut through the air. Align your shields, brothers, as the stars align in the heavens. These words, drawn from al-Makrzi's accounts, revealed a discipline that was not mere rigidity, but a harmonious balance, where each man's role contributed to the whole. In those citadel yards, drills unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Free from the chaos of battle, soldiers, garbed in tunics beneath their armor, marched in formation, their boots scuffing the packed earth with a rhythmic thud that pulsed through the ground. The warmth of the setting sun brushed against their skin, a gentle reminder of the day's end, while the faint aroma of roasting spices from nearby kitchens wafted in, softening the martial atmosphere. Al-Makrzi noted how such routines fostered not just physical prowess, but an inner fortitude, where obedience was as natural as breath. An officer might pause, his chainmail settling with a soft rattle, to inspect a line of spearmen, his gaze steady and unflinching. "Hold firm," he would murmur, his words carrying the weight of tradition, ensuring that even the slightest deviation was corrected with a nod rather than a shout. This discipline extended beyond the physical, touching the very soul of the Mamluk way. Al-Makrzi's writings paint a picture of a system where loyalty was paramount, enforced through subtle mechanisms that went deeper than written laws. In the shadows of the yard, where the light played tricks on the eye, one could sense the mystery of the unwritten codes, those unspoken rules that governed every interaction. Perhaps it was the way a junior soldier anticipated his superior's command before it was uttered, or the silent exchange of glances that spoke of shared secrets passed down through oral tradition. These codes, elusive as the evening mist rising from the river, held a quiet enigma, for they were never inscribed in scrolls or proclaimed in edicts. Al-Makrzi hints at their existence in his descriptions of the Mamluk elite, where a breach might lead to consequences as inevitable as the turn of seasons, yet without the need for explicit enforcement. As the drills continued, the sensory tapestry of the scene unfolded layer by layer. The clink of chainmail against leather straps created a lullaby of sorts, a metallic whisper that blended with the rustle of banners flapping lazily in the breeze. One could almost feel the cool touch of the evening air on one's face, carrying with it the earthy scent of the citadel's ancient foundations. Officers, their armor polished to a subtle sheen, moved with graceful authority, their presence a calming anchor amidst the ordered chaos. A soldier's shield might scrape against another, producing a low, resonant hum, while shouted commands delivered in measured tones resonated like distant thunder, not to startle, but to guide. Al-Makrzi recounts how such discipline was honed through daily repetition, drawing from historical examples where the Mamluk's famed resilience in battles stemmed from these very yards. Consider, for instance, the way the soldiers practiced their formations, their movements synchronized as if by some invisible force. Al-Makrzi describes similar scenes in his chronicles, where the Mamluks, under various emirs, maintained an ironclad order enemies. Here in the yard, an officer might demonstrate a parry with his sword, the blade slicing through the air with a soft whoosh, the metal catching the last rays of sunlight. The soldiers watched, their breath steady, absorbing the lesson without question. This was discipline as a form of art, where the mind and body aligned in perfect harmony, and the mystery of the unwritten codes added a layer of intrigue. What made one soldier rise through the ranks? Was it mere skill, or an intuitive grasp of those shadowy traditions that al-Makrizi only alludes to, never fully revealing? In the quieter moments, when the drills paused for a brief respite, the yard transformed into a space of reflection. Soldiers might lean on their spears, the wood warm from the day's heat, while the officers conferred in low voices, their chainmail shifting with a faint, soothing jingle. The air grew cooler, carrying whispers of the surrounding city, the call to prayer from a nearby minaret, a gentle hum that wove through the discipline like a thread of serenity. Al-Makrizi notes how such interludes were essential, allowing the men to internalize the codes that defined their brotherhood. These unwritten rules, perhaps originating from the slave markets of Central Asia or the training grounds of Cairo, remained a puzzle even to the historians of the time. They spoke of honor, of loyalty that transcended words, and of a discipline so ingrained that it became second nature. Yet amid this calm, there lingered the subtle wit of human endeavor. One might chuckle inwardly at the officer who, with a wry glance, corrected a wayward soldier's grip, his words laced with a dry observation. Remember, brother, even the Nile flows straight when guided properly. Such moments, as al-Makrizi might have appreciated, highlighted the Mamluk's ability to blend severity with humanity. The mystery deepened here, for these codes were not just rules, but a living legacy, evolving with each generation, yet remaining just out of reach, like stars glimpsed through a haze. As night began to fall, casting long shadows across the yard, the drills wound down. The soldiers dispersed with the same order they had assembled, their footsteps fading into the dusk. The chainmail's clinks grew sporadic, a final lullaby echoing against the citadel walls. Al-Makrizi's accounts remind us that this discipline was the backbone of the Mamluk Empire, a force that withstood invasions and internal strife. And in the mystery of those unwritten codes, one finds a gentle intrigue, a whisper of what might have been lost to time. Now, as the stars emerge in the velvet sky, the scene fades, leaving one to ponder the echoes of history. What secrets did those codes hold, and how might they influence the paths yet to come? Perhaps, in the next tale, we shall uncover more